Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here. So the Washington Commanders are possibly bringing in a familiar face in pass rusher Preston Smith. Could he possibly be the defender the Commanders need? If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, do all that good stuff. Let's get right into this video. We'll talk about some other moves that the Commanders, have made that you don't want to miss. So stay tuned for that. But this is a big, name for sure, not just around the NFL, but obviously for the Commanders is, a guy that used to play for this franchise, not when it was the Commanders, but when it was the Redskins, and, did a pretty good job, was a second round pick, went to Green Bay, was even better. And the last few years, he hasn't been the same. But obviously the Commanders do need a pass rusher, and, maybe he could fill that void that Dietrich Wise, he could fill that void of Dietrich Wise. And, Dietrich Wise wasn't a star either. He was a good pass rusher, a good probably third pass rusher to have on your team, but wasn't, a good starter, I would say, in this league. And, Preston Smith, I would say, is still probably a step below Dietrich Wise, but, and obviously, sucks Dietrich Wise is out because he is a good player, really, good run defender, can get to the quarterback occasionally, and would have been, good for us this year and was the first game of the season. But Preston Smith, they're bringing him in for a workout. They need help at that position. I, wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if they end up making this official in the next day or so. Whenever you're bringing a guy, it's, because there is some interest there, and it's not like Preston Smith is getting visits, workouts from all these different teams. So it is definitely something of interest, for Preston Smith and also the Commanders. You look at his stats, obviously started with, the Skins in 2015 till 2018. Wasn't amazing, was okay, was decent. Had some big moments, that Cowboys game. And then you got the Packers. His first year there had 12 sacks. The next year 4, 9, 8.5, 8. So never the 2019 was probably, one of the better pass rushers in the NFL, but was never like an elite guy. And, was with the Packers and then got traded in 2024 last year, had 4.5 total sacks in 17 games. The guy is healthy. I don't know if he's ever missed a game. I don't know when the 17 started. It might have been 2021, but, he's played every game besides maybe one. Has 70.5 career sacks. Like, this guy's a veteran. He's not young, obviously. He's 33. I'm assuming it was 32 last offseason. So he's not young, but he can come in there and play some okay football for you. And, I guess none of the players who were on that 2015 team are on the team now. But even the 2018, I'm trying to, go back. Tress Way was there. I don't even know who else. Terry McLaurin wasn't there. John Allen, Deron Payne did play with Preston Smith, but they're not there anymore. So Preston Smith, he's not going to, be a super game changer. Maybe he will be. I don't believe he will be, but he could be a good, other pass rush to have, a veteran to add to the mix. Obviously, it's not helping the, allegations of, Adam Peters, bringing in a lot of old players. But at this point, you're not, the guys that, replacement players, level players, aren't going to be a lot of young options. So Preston Smith will be, would be a solid option for them. It would really just be a rotation. Like, Dorrance Armstrong's your one starter. After that, it's a mix of, all right, Jacob Martin, Preston Smith, Von Miller, Jean-Baptiste. So those are kind of the different options that they would have going for them if they did, bring in Preston Smith. And I do want to go over some other news, just some guys that they brought in for workouts besides Preston Smith. So we'll talk about this right here, some other moves as well. But real quick, a word from today's sponsor. And a huge shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you guys go ahead and check them out. They got fantasy sports leagues, a bunch of, breaking news on there. And also you can win real money with picks, which I have done each week. So make sure you guys follow my picks. You guys can tail the picks as well. Use my code Pedro on Sleeper and get a 100% match up to $100. You put in 10, you'll get 20. And yeah, link in the description. Terms and conditions apply. And a huge shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. So let's go over some other moves the Commanders made. So they signed guard Tyler Cooper and also wide receiver Tate Martin to the practice squad. They placed Darian Dalcourt on the practice squad injured list, so he's out. Tate Martin, a familiar face for the Washington Commanders, a guy that played pretty well in the offseason during training camp, but more importantly the preseason. So he's a guy that didn't have a lot of time on the team, but I think this is good. I wish they would have kept him, but it is what it is. Would be nice if they brought up Corey Brooks. We'll go over some other moves as well because they did make some moves yesterday in terms of roster replacements with Austin Eckler and Dietrich Wise being out for the season. So I do want to go to that. There it is. Also, Chase Edmonds signed to the practice squad, so that's a possible option on the offense as well. Probably will get called up for this week. Depends on how things go this week in practice. Jalen Holmes and Chris Moore, they're signed from the practice squad to the active roster. So Chris Moore made a big catch in that Giants game. I believe it was on third down, like 34 yards. So shout out to him, maybe 31, one of those two. But yeah, watch it be like 37 or whatever. But I think it was whatever. It doesn't matter. But he had a big catch, and I wasn't a big fan of him in the offseason. He made a lot of big drops during the preseason. But guess what? He came in, got called up, and made a big play. So that's why he's getting called up. Would be cool if Corey Brooks did, but it's not what happened. And then Jalen Holmes, also had a little bit of a disappointing preseason, especially his, the end of his preseason. But because of what he's done before in the NFL, especially last year with the Commanders, a familiar face, a guy that did make not a lot of big plays, but made some plays, and maybe like one or two big plays last year, gives him that boost and that advantage to get onto the active roster. So those are the replacements they made. But if they do bring in Preston Smith, then it fairly could be that Jalen Holmes is released and then he ends up going back to the practice squad. So for now he's on the active 53-man roster, but it might change in a little bit. So all things to consider, but overall nothing crazy on that front. The bigger news obviously is possibly bringing in Preston Smith, a guy that was with this franchise for a while and might be coming back, which would be cool. He's definitely talk some ish about the franchise and the fans, which I get. But I know some fans don't love him. But that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.